Good afternoon, third grade, or good morning, depending on when you're watching this. And welcome back to Roman Daily Lives, Part 2. So, excuse me. It's been a long day. You're probably saying that to yourself as well. All right. Or maybe your day just started. I don't know. So, you've watched part 1 about students going to school and Romans going to work and waking up in the morning, being ready to go, and what happens next. Well, if you're a student, you're still in school. But if you're an adult and you finished your workday around 11, it is time to have some fun. Let's find out all about what happens next, shall we? In a typical Roman day. Well, where are the Romans going to head to? They are going to head to the Roman baths. Yes. And yes, baths were a favorite Roman pastime. Sometimes Romans went every single day to the baths. Now, why? Well, getting clean was very important. They didn't have all the fantastic technology we have today. So being clean and having cleanliness and personal hygiene was incredibly important to the Romans. Second, it was a place to socialize. These baths, some of them were small, some of them were massively huge and could hold up to 3,000 people at once. Some were larger than our school. I know. It wasn't just a giant room with a pool, though, that everyone took a bath in. No, different pools and different rooms meant different things. So we're going to learn about those as we move forward. Fee or free? Well, most Roman baths did have a small fee for you to enter them. In our times, it'd be like $1 to go use the Roman baths for as long as you'd like. The money that they were collecting at the Roman baths typically went to pay for all the upkeep because, well, you got to make sure the place is clean, and there's a lot of people actually working at the baths, as you're going to find out. Sometimes they were free, though. Sometimes a consul or a senator or an emperor in later times or any kind of politician would pay the entire fee for anyone for an entire day to use the baths for free in order to, garner popular public opinion of them so they could win the next election. So they'd say, hey, the bath is free for anyone who wants to come on down. The cost is on me. Vote for me to be the next senator. And it worked a lot of times. How Romans took baths back in the day was a little different than how we take baths today. Soap wasn't used as much as something else. Yet, you're reading that right, oil. Romans would oil themselves up and then scrape off the oil with a strigil. Strigil is that fun-looking item right here. That is actually a copper strigil from ancient Roman times. And so you would take it and scrape the oil off your body. And that was how they got clean. Yeah. Here's an example of a Roman bath. This is actually in Bath, England. Remember, the Roman Empire stretched in so many different locations that there are still remaining baths and bathhouses all around where the ancient Roman Empire used to be. This one is in England. It's not currently in use. You can still go visit it. You just can't go in the water. Some of them you can. I just seem to be going really, really fast. All right, here we go. So types of rooms. The different types of rooms that would be typically found in a bathhouse included the apodidarium, which would be the changing room, where you leave all your things. They didn't necessarily have lockers, but they had places to store your things, like little cubbies. Lots of people left their clothes there, but they didn't necessarily leave their jewelry or their important items because theft was very prominent in the Roman baths. There was the tepidarium, which was a warm bath. That was the main bath in the central hallway. So that's actually what this picture is portraying, is the tepidarium. So you would have uh, basically everyone hanging out. This would be where you could do your oil scraping. You could have social time. You might be meeting with people. You might just be going to relax a little bit and chatting. Notice how in this picture there are all men. That is because the baths were split up by genders. There is typically a time set aside for when the men could go and a time set aside for just the women. Yes, the women got to go to the public baths. Then there was a caldarium. That was the hot bath. It was kind of like a steam room or a sauna or our version of a hot tub. It was crazy warm in there. Very, very warm, up to 120 degrees, very much like a sauna or a steam room, to kind of open up the pores, get all the gunk out of your skin, and just kind of de-stress after a stressful day. There was the frigidarium. The word frigid sounds familiar. It means cold. This would be where you would cool off at the end of the long day. You might travel to all of these rooms, and then you would typically end your stay at the frigidarium. So it'd be a nice cool off. It would be a good place to wipe off any excess oil that might be on you and kind of wake yourself up and be ready to go for the rest of the day. And then there was the palestra, which is the gymnasium. You might be going there to lift weights or throw discus or play ball games with some of your friends. Still not interested in the baths? Oh, that's too bad. Because, well, one, here are two that are really cool. But two, the Roman baths are also filled with so much more than just pools of water. There were food vendors, and there were acrobats and jugglers. There were philosophers. There were small rooms with theaters, and you could watch performances. There were lecture halls and debate rooms, and there were sports centers in some of the baths area, or the baths. So it was a giant community center type building. It wasn't just a whole bunch of pools, but there was so much more going on there. Woo! Am I there? I am there. This bath, by the way, that is a photograph. It is an active bath that is still able to be used in Algeria. Remember, the Roman Empire took over parts of Algeria, and now in Algeria, 2,000 years later, these baths are still being used. It's incredible. So, how did they get the water into the baths? Well, Romans were brilliant. They had so many architectural and scientific and crazy mathematical advances that had never been done before. It's astounding. And one of them was the creation of aqueducts and a sewer system and pipe systems. And they actually were able to, with the use of aqueducts, which we'll learn about later, they were able to pipe in or pump in the water into all the baths, which it was allowing the water to circulate in and then back out. So it wasn't just stagnant water sitting in the baths that just got gross. It was constantly recirculating through and getting out the gunk and bringing new water in. So they were always clean. Some baths, like the one in Bath, England, wonder how it got that name, Bath, England, was actually, it was warmed by hot springs, and some parts of Italy as well. Hot springs are volcanic areas, and sometimes those hot springs, they bring water up, that mineral water that isn't too hot, that people can actually withstand. Now, don't try to do this in Yellowstone. The Yellowstone hot springs are too hot, and they will do severe burning to you. But certain hot springs have a water temperature that is heated by that geothermal heat and we can handle it without getting sick or burned. Now, if you were rich, well, you might have your own private bath as well in your house, which you might invite your friends over for. Like this one looks like just a giant hot tub and looks like a lot of fun. Now, I'm moving on to a question. What's a hippocaust? Well, this is how they heated the really warm room, the caldarium. The caldarium. There we go. Hippocaust was actually heated air that they pumped in through the floor. Yeah, heated air they pumped in through the floor. Yep, the Romans could do that. Very cool. We're going to see one in a moment. And like I said, not just for men. There were male baths and women baths. And typically, if they ended up sharing a building, there were certain times, these or certain days, this is when the men are allowed to go. This is when the women are allowed to go. Ooh, I'm right on top of it. So, how do we know what actually happened at the baths? Well, they've been going through the drains. Yeah, I'm serious. Personal hygiene items have been found in ancient Roman drainage systems that have led out of the baths. Things including tweezers, nail cleaners, perfume vials, oil flasks, the straddle that takes the oil off your skin, all those items. They also believe that things like dentistry happened at the Roman baths. They found teeth from people in the drains. So people might have gotten teeth excavated out and tossed down the drain. They found gaming items such as dice and coins. So there was certainly gambling going on in the baths. They found food items, bones from sheep or poultry or peacocks, bones of food items. They had little snack food vendors and snack items available, and these items were found in the drains. And then jewelry, and it has a question mark by it because, well, you think, okay, sometimes you might lose your jewelry and when you're going swimming. I understand that. Yep, it happens to everybody. But actually, the jewelry that people were wearing, most of the time, they took into the baths with them. One, because we talked about things could get stolen, but two, this was a place to be social. This was a huge social outlet. It was like a big mall, but it's not a mall, it's a bath. And this was the place to kind of show off. Look at this brand new necklace I just got, or look at this gorgeous hairpin, or look, I'm the richest person in Rome. Look at all my rings. And they wore all their jewelry in the baths to really show off their status. The picture on the bottom here is another ruins or remains of a Roman bath. And then this top bit is a Roman caldarium. So that would have been filled with water, not too high. And then it would have been, the floor would have been heated with the hippocaust and with the warm air. And then all these columns would have been releasing that warm air as well into the room. And it would get really, really warm. So after their time at the Roman baths, they would head back home. And they would have one more meal. This meal would be kind of their end meal of the day. It was typically between our lunch and dinner times. So their end of the day meal, their cena, 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 their dinner happened way before our dinner. It was typically around 2 or 3 o'clock. So men would have home, and this would be the largest meal of the day. Their meal, though, would pretty much consist of wheatmeal porridge, like oatmeal or cream of wheat. Sometimes they would have meats, cheeses, some dried meat or some smoked meat, some vegetables. But their dinner, although it was the largest meal of the day, it was mainly, this looks exciting, right? Unless there was a giant feast to be had. And if there was a feast, and you had lots of money, you had a giant feast. You invited all your friends, and you had a fantastic time having Cena or a Comissatio. All right. And the feasts in Rome were giant spectacles of just a display of riches and abundance and amazing things. It wasn't just a meal, it was an event. Oh, people didn't sit on chairs. Yes, they really did lay down on couches. See those couches? Yes. They would arrange the couches in a giant room. Typically, there'd be 3 couches around low tables, and the couches arrangement would be called a triclinium, which meant 3 couches. Each couch would hold about 3 adults, and you would lay down on your stomach and happily eat your meal. Sometimes your grand feast of a meal could be up to 6 or 7 courses long. You'd start with your hors d'oeuvres, and then you would have a little snack to cleanse your palate, and then you'd have another little salad, and then you'd have a little appetizer cleansing palate thing, and then an intro course, and then a bigger course, and then another, and then you'd have dessert, and oh, and all while this is happening, you have entertainment going on. The room is decoratively colored. You have all these fun plates and things to choose from and eat from. You're also probably wearing your finest outfit because you're going to dress to impress at a Cena feast. Now, for utensils, well, the Romans used spoons a lot, but when it came to forks, sometimes. But if you were on the poorer end, you would be using your hands a lot. Entertainment wise, oh, the Commissacios and the Cenas were filled with dancers or musicians or theatrical performances, or there would be poetry being read. Sometimes they had trained animals like leopards or lions come in, and their trainers would have them do fancy tricks. It was pretty epic. And after that fantastic feast, well, the rest of the day was leisure time. If you didn't think that was leisurely enough, Romans loved their leisure time. They were all about it. This was the most important part of the Roman life, I'm pretty sure. They spent their evenings doing things they loved, so participating in concerts, playing music, creating art, dancing, going to sporting events, reading, writing, doing something that wasn't work, and doing something that they loved and pursued talents that they were interested in. Many attended plays, gladiatorial fights, and chariot races at the Circus Maximus, which is what is sitting right there below my screen. We will learn about gladiatorial fights and chariot races later because we're not there yet, but we're going to get there. And then when their events for the day were completed, the end of the day, Romans might spend a short amount of time at a religious temple, but most of them would head home and give a small blessing to their household shrine, which is below me right here. That's an example of a household shrine called a Lares. And each house, if you were a larger house, you were a patrician, you had more money, you would have a Lares in your house, and there you would take some time to thank a specific god or goddess for your blessings of that day, and thank them for the day that they gave you, and then do some thoughtful things with your family, and hope for a fantastic day tomorrow. Then it was time for evening and good night. Romans lit their homes in the evening with oil lamps. This is an example of one actually right here. A bronze oil lamp. Actually, I think that's a copper oil lamp. Many families, though, in Rome could only afford one lamp. and very little light came from the oil lamp, as you can see right there. That's it's about one candle. Yeah, it's a lot of light. Yep, it's not going to light up a whole room. So as soon as that sun went down, were pretty much headed to bed. If you were a patrician, you were on the richer side, you might have lots and lots of oil lamps. But think about how dangerous that could be. You have a lamp filled with oil that's on fire. Fires were very common in the Roman Empire because if one of those oil lamps gets knocked over by you stumbling around in the dark or one of your pets stumbles around in the dark, now you have oil everywhere and now it's all on fire. Yeah. So families really didn't like using the oil lamps, but it's what they had for light. So as soon as that sun went down, they were all in bed ready to go because they needed to be up right away when that sun came up the next day to make the most of their daylight. They had a whole day ahead of them to go to school or to go enjoy their leisure time, and that was very important to them. So they needed to make sure they got enough sleep so they were ready to go the next day. That is the end of Roman daily life. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about Rome, and I look forward to doing more Rome learning with you.